Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game. It's match P of Brighton and Hove Albion against West Ham United. Gonzo, would you kindly kick us off with your thoughts on Brighton, please?
Yeah, I like Brighton. Really like him. Great club to visit. Great club for an away fan. I will not stop saying it. Excellent pies, excellent ale, and there's not much more important in life than excellent pies and ale. Let's be perfectly honest with you. I like the way they've done the club, all the local companies. Their local brewery, local pies. Like the Amex. Don't like the station in and out so much. Getting the train from Brighton from like the sea, from the town, the seaside up to it is not good. Park and Ride's very good. Tony Bloom, Paul Barber. They've done a tremendous job, an absolutely tremendous job. And I will never tire of saying it, because when they were at their old stadium, that old hockey stadium, had no roof on most of it. And it was a shambles. They were an absolute shambles of a club. And I think if you'd have said to me 20 years ago, they are going to be one of the better teams in the top division, £100 million players and this, that, and the other, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, don't be ridiculous. What set of circumstances? In fact, if you had have done, I would have said, well, maybe like a Roman Abramovich has taken over then, or something like that. I might have believed it if that was the case. That they could do it organically, forget it. I wouldn't have believed it for a second.
Anyway, from off the pitch to on the pitch, I think they're a very difficult team to work out. I can't tell if I rate them or not. I know I rate their players individually. I don't know if I mean, with 5 games to go, I still feel like I'm figuring Brighton out, which is not good. And I still don't know if I rate Hurstler or not at Brighton. A very inconsistent team. One game I watched them, I feel like I'm watching a really good tactical plan by Hurstler. The players are playing the way they should be. They get a good result. And literally the next week I'm watching them thinking, what on earth is going on here? And it just looks like the players don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. There's no clear patterns of play. Then the following week, it's back to what it was. It's very Jekyll and Hyde. Whenever I watch Brighton, I never know what version of Brighton I'm going to get. I've seen good sides of them and I've seen bad sides of them this season. I'm a bit disappointed by them, even though they could still go and get 8th and get a form of European football if, funnily enough, Crystal Palace don't go on and win the FA Cup. So actually they could finish 8th and Palace win the FA Cup and stop them getting European football, which is not something...
the rivalry!
That's not something they're going to want to endure. So I'm pretty sure they will be rooting for Palace to get beat in the FA Cup semi-final this weekend. But I just think they've got a really good group of players there. I think they've got a big group of talented players. They've been very unlucky with injuries this season. Pretty much every good player has been injured at some point. O'Reilly's the one in particular I was really looking forward to seeing at Brighton. I was jealous. I've used that word before. Actually, I wasn't. I was almost, don't know why, I was almost like triggered. I was like angry Brighton got him and West Ham didn't try and get him. I felt like he was like the perfect player for us. Just a very unfortunate injury early on in his Brighton career. But I do think he's one of those players that if I was to write down a list of 10 players to look out for next season, I think O'Reilly would be in there for me. So yeah, I'm still... I'm not still working them out. I've just decided I can't work them out, and that's it. That's my conclusion. There's no investigation. That's just my decision. Potentially, they could finish 8th, Gonzo. Would you consider that a good season, and do you think they'll get 8th?
I don't think they'll get 8th. 8th would definitely be a good season, although I obviously... It's difficult for Brighton because I do feel all the culmination of their wily spending and their saving and their player trading, and the culmination of that was last summer. So it was a case of, right, we've done this, never mind, because we've been so good, hold it with FFP, hold our beer and watch this. I think Brighton were doing that, and it hasn't. I agree, they've got some good players, by the way. It hasn't translated in results on the pitch. And actually, looking ahead to this game, obviously, if you look at the bottom, well, apart from Ipswich, if you look at the bottom 4 teams, of course, we're one of them. No one's won in the last 5. There's only one other team in the Premier League hasn't won the last 5, and it's Brighton. That being said, I do agree. I do think they feels like they're good every other game. And we'd take that at West Ham, wouldn't we? Being good every second game, that'd be nice.
I'd take being good every 4th game at the moment.
Exactly, yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? So, So I can understand why. But I think they started the season very well as well. I think when Hersler came in, I think they were a purple patch there. So I think it was very much a case of, look, Brighton have spent all this money and they've got the best young coach in Europe. So I think there was that. But I think De Zerbi is a tough, really, really tough guy to follow. He was really good, wasn't he? So yeah, I can understand for them why 8th wouldn't be. Oh, sorry, why 10th wouldn't be good, but from an outsider, if you take the long-term view, you still look at the wow, look, Brighton head in 10th position in Premier League. It's amazing. So, yeah, but I can understand how it wouldn't be viewed as that.
It shows how far they've come as well, that they view finishing 10th as a disappointing campaign. I don't think they'll get 8th either. I'm sticking with Fulham, but saying that, Fulham aren't giving me much evidence as to why they're going to finish 8th. It seems to them, Bournemouth and Brighton, the three of them are just really inconsistent at the worst time of the season. 8th is there for the taking, and they've got to assume Aston Villa or Man City or Nottingham Forest will finish in the top 6, 7 and go on and win the FA Cup. You have to. The last thing you want to do is blow this and then Palace don't win the FA Cup. It's like, oh, it was European football after all. And I actually think the Conference League would be the perfect competition for Brighton next season. I think it's easy enough to get through the group stage without really putting too much stress on your squad. I think they've got a lot of strength in depth when everyone's fit, and that's the issue. I think they could navigate that competition easily enough. And in the latter period, especially now that there's no drop down from Europa League into the Conference League, that's gone. So the Conference League's actually got easier since West Ham were in it. There's no more drop downs. I would make Brighton, I always say this, it doesn't matter which English team's in the Conference League, I expect them to go on and win it. If you don't win it, it's been a failure. You're that good, you're better than the rest of the teams, and you've got the financial powerhouse that the other teams don't have. This competition was created for clubs that don't usually get in European football to have a chance of European football. But when they did that, they didn't mean the Premier League clubs and the French clubs. They were meaning the Polish clubs. For sure. And the Swedish clubs and the Norwegian. We'll give them a competition where they might get out of the group stage and they can go into the latter rather than turning up in the Champions League and losing 5 out of 6 and getting a draw in the 6-1 and away you go. There's your money back to where you've come from. So, yeah, I don't think they'll get 8th, but if they do, I think they'll go on and win the Conference League, should that be European football. Lastly, well, actually, no, one more question. Is it time for Brighton to stop selling their top players? Obviously, it's been their club strategy. Barber has already spoken a few weeks ago about how the club will have to sell Mitoma and or Baliba this summer. Do you think they should continue with that because it's worked for them? Or do you think it's got to the point, because eventually it's going to stop working, right? Eventually Brighton possibly gets so good that actually, well, hang on a minute, you're selling players to our rivals now. I think before it was you're selling players to clubs playing Champions League football, but now it's sort of like, which the clubs you're selling these players to, you're challenging them in the league. So do you think it's now time to stop it, or...
Well, it depends if they can keep repeating the trick. I mean, and it is a very, very clever trick because, I mean, if you look at, the players that were brought in under Potter's time there's players from Ecuador and places like that. They're not necessarily grabbing the hottest. They're not buying Endrick from Brazil. Do you know what I mean? They're buying players for £2 million and £5 million and polishing them up, and they're worth £30 million, £50 million, whatever the case may be. They can keep repeating that trick, then crack on. They can only. It's very, very difficult in the Premier League because even though there is some discrepancy in terms of the places, so West Ham, you could say, well, hold on, if we get a few more places, we get an extra £10 million. Yeah, and that's true. But more or less, in terms of TV revenue, clubs get more or less the same money. You either get £150 million or £170 million. The rest is pretty much sponsorship, gate receipts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be well down on that stuff. So it's whether they can bridge that gap. So it's a relatively even playing field. How are they going to bridge that gap? Do they need to bridge that gap? I guess these are all questions for them, really. I would suggest possibly the only way they can bridge that gap is by selling players, because they're never going to get as many people through the gates as Manchester United. Although the Pies are very good. So they're just not going to have that turnover and sponsorship. So how can they do that? It's by selling players. But I mean, it's a hell of a trick. And I mean, I always think of Southampton, another South Coast club, of course, and they were, be it all the way back, and it doesn't really matter whether it's Bale or whether it's Walcott or whether it's when they were selling Lallana, selling Mane to Liverpool, selling everyone to Liverpool, Van Dijk.
Ricky Lambert.
Licky Rambert. There does come a point where maybe it stops, but only if you stop being able to repeat the trick. So if they've still got, and the biggest testament to them is they seem to have lost everyone. They lost everyone. They lost all their coaches. They lost Ashworth. No problem. Because the talent is still here, and got big money for those players. I'm not sorry for those people. Got big money for Potter. Got big money for Ashworth. And in the case of hold on a second, the talent we spent all that money, we still haven't got the talent, which is still which is obviously Barber and Bloom and whoever else they got around them. So yeah, whatever. Keep selling if you can keep doing it.
I think there's a halfway house, which is overinflated prices, which I would maybe suggest Caicedo was well over 100 million. He was. I think it's just too good a price to turn down, really. So when it comes to keeping your players, keep them as much as you can, and only accept something instead of a reasonable fee, accept just ridiculous fees only. And I think that will change the way people look at Brighton, because at the minute, the sort of other clubs in the Premier League must look at them as a selling club and say, well, we want a Brighton player, we'll go get him because we know they're willing to sell. We don't even have to ask that question. We know they are. It's just a case of how much. But if you can change the narrative, which is, well, actually, we're not going to go there because everybody's overpriced, that would go some way.
That's true. And we saw that ourselves with Ferguson, of course. Well, you can have him, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah, and I would argue they've done that already. I'd argue they've already done that with Mitoma in January, 90 million, 80 million, whatever it was. They said, no, not selling him.
Who offered? They wanted him for 90 million.
A Saudi club. Yeah, and they rejected it. And they said, no, not having him.
They don't need to, do they? That's the thing.
That takes cojones. There's not many other Premier League clubs. If they had Mitoma and that bid came in January for him, we'd have went, no, we're rejecting that. We would know. West Ham would have bit their hand off. Said, oh yeah,
we wouldn't have had him in the first place, mate. Let's be fair.
Yeah, no. Persia Mayer.
Do you know? I don't watch much of Brighton. I've got to be honest. For all my
admiration, busy eating the pie. That's why.
That's just true.
You're on the concourse.
It's true. Who could blame me? Yeah. In fact, last time I was there, I actually bought 3 pies, and one of them, because you could park in the university, which is over the way, and my third pie I actually ate walking back from you. Walking back to my car, which I parked in the university. Anyway, a very nice pies. I do like that Estepinian. I don't know if he's better than a pie, but he's very good. Every time I've seen him play, now he might be one of those players who's crap every other game. But every time I watch him, he just looks good. Really good footballer. I like Matt O'Reilly again, as you say, very, very good. The band geezer who plays up front, who's missing. He's good, isn't he? And Matoma too can forget. No one more so than Ben Johnson can forget Matoma. That was horrific. I got a front row seat for that. I must have been not munching on a pie at that point. They got some good players. You'll know more than me, though.
I think Van Heck's had a really good season. Perhaps not the one that gets all the plaudits, but I think he's been one of their better and more consistent players this season, albeit helped by perhaps more naturally gifted players being injured for prolonged periods. But I think he's stood out. I think Pedro is talented, but that red card has been coming. He's done it 2 or 3 other times this season where he's swung a limb at an opposition player, but he's missed, so he hasn't got sent off. So I think it was always just a case of when. And then against Brentford, I think there was almost a double red card for me. The more I watch it, I think he kicks him and elbows him. But that's something that needs to be, they need to get a lid on that pretty quickly, because there's no doubt that he's got an incredible talent, but a very petulant player. And that's sometimes a dangerous combination. I think their best player by a country miles, Baliba. I think, again, another player you're watching, you think, where on earth they got this guy from? If I read, not that I do, if I was to read 442's top 50 wonder kids to look out for, I don't think he was on that list. I doubt he was on that list. So where's this guy come from? It's not like there's a level of lazy scouting here where, like our chairman may or may not do, which he loads up Football Manager, simulates the next 5 seasons, and goes, right, who's good? Right, now we're going to go see if they're really good in real life. They've got something else. This algorithm of Tony Bloom's company, Jamestown or whatever it's Analytics or whatever it's called, but fantastic talent. He's just superb. Everything you want in a midfielder, he's there. And that algorithm, I'm sure they've got more than one, but my word, is brilliant for central midfielders. Baliba, McAllister, Bissouma, Caicedo. They just keep on churning out top central midfielders. I am bloody jealous.
We got none.
I mean, we've got something going on. It just doesn't work.
Oh dear.
We've done it all. It spat out Guido Rodriguez, went brilliant. Let's sign him. It's no one put pace in. We didn't.
Can't we hack them? Can't we hack Brighton's database or something?
I don't know. I'm with the AI these days. Can you not just say to tell AI, pretend you're Jamestown Analytics? Who would you recommend as a midfielder for the Premier League, and see what it spits out? We laugh. I wouldn't be surprised if David Sullivan's currently typing that in this week onto AI. Who should West Ham sign? Let's see what it comes back out as. Anyway, enough about Brighton. Let's talk about West Ham. Before we do that, I want to point in direction of today's video sponsors, Match Bingo. You don't need any data. You don't need any analysis to win at Match Bingo. 2 promotions for you. First one, if you're a newbie, you've never used it before, download it using the link in the description below or the QR code that's currently on your screen. Get signed up. If you deposit £10, they will give you £10 for free. So you've got 20 quid to play with, a lot more bang for your buck. Match Bingo combines the traditional game with the football match. You'll get events that you need to occur. Some are dead simple, some are slightly more trickier, but there's a £250 up for grabs in this game alone, with over £10,000 of prizes given away on Match Bingo. There's £10,000 of money up for grabs every single week on this app. And it's not just football, there's darts as well. So if you're a darts fan, you can get cards for the darts as well. So while you're watching it, just adds a little bit more entertainment. You don't need anything. You don't need to do anything. Purchase your cards, put your phone down, enjoy the event, and hopefully, fingers crossed, win some money as well. And that takes me on to promotion number 2. Buy 4 cards, you get your 5th card free. It's only £2 per go as well, but it is gambling. So please do gamble responsibly and 18 plus years over only. Link in the description below. QR code is on the screen, but it's going to disappear in a few seconds, so get it downloaded quickly. Gonzo, would you like some team news? It's quite a bit this week, actually.
Yes, please.
It's all falling apart.
Yes, yeah.
No Evan Ferguson. He obviously can't
damn.
play. He can't play against his parent club, so we're not going to get that 3 minutes off the bench from him this week.
Shame.
No Somerville or Antonio. Likely to have no Edson Alvarez. There's been a bus stop or a back injury or something, but Edson Alvarez is likely to be unavailable for selection. However, Gonzo, you've not had a fight with him, so you can select him if you want.
I'm one of the few that hasn't, to be fair. I wonder if Graham Potter caused a back injury by whacking him, allegedly.
Wan-Bissaka should be back for this game. He missed the fantastic draw against Southampton.
Hold on. He had a sore toe.
Yeah.
And Alvarez had a sore back.
Yeah.
Did Wan-Bissaka kick Alvarez in the back?
Possibly. We do not know. But Wan-Bissaka, hopefully his toe is okay. But for the preview, we're going to assume it is. So you can have anyone except Ferguson, Somerville, or Antonio. Everyone else is available for you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to discuss a team we want to see, not what we think Potter will do. Usually 2 different things. So Gonzo, with all that said and done, could you tell me who you'd like to see in the sticks and in defence on Saturday afternoon, please?
Yeah, I'll go with Areola between the sticks. It did okay, to be fair. He did okay. Well, Wan-Bissaka's back, so he goes big at right back. Todibo, he's going to go in at right centre back again. I thought he was the better of the central defenders, and for that reason, I am going to drop Maximilian Kilman from this particular game, and I'm going to put Konstantinos Mavropanos in and Emerson at left back.
Yeah, we match. Wan-Bissaka picks himself. Todibo picks himself. As I discussed in last week's preview, I'm not convinced by Kilman in a back four at all. He played against Southampton. I thought he looked terrible, to be honest with you. I thought he was constantly out of position, and he struggled with Paul Onuachu. Now, if he's not going to cope against possibly the worst striker in the Premier League, I struggle to have hope or faith he's going to cope with, well, Danny Welbeck in this case, but regardless, a better ability of player. So I'd bring Mavropanos in, and it might be Mavropanos is header prone, sure, but I think Kilman is also header prone, and he's doing it. I think Kilman's getting away with it, actually. I think if Kilman was doing, if Mavropanos done what Kilman did against Southampton, I think Mavropanos would have got a lot of criticism in comparison. Now, I will say, granted, Kilman's had a decent enough season, whereas Mavropanos perhaps not so much. But I do feel like the conversation around Graham Potter has allowed fans to ignore some of the player performances from last weekend. And I understand why. I'm probably guilty of it myself. But I don't think Kilman had a good game. And I would keep Emerson at left back as well. I think he's actually had quite a few good performances back to back now. Moving into midfield, here's the problem area. What you got?
Well, it really is the problem area. And I'll pick none of them if I could. It's really hard to know who the finger was being pointed at.
Well, this is it, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. It's tough. We're talking about the finger from Nicholas Fulkrug's finger was being wagged at somebody or other.
Maybe he's going to miss Saturday with a finger injury.
There's a lot of wagging going on.
Wagging. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Yeah. He was like he didn't get injured. He walked onto the pitch with no shoes and socks on at the end of the game. With all those people walking around with football boots on. Oh, mate, I don't know, wouldn't do that. That's not advisable. But anyway, the premise was the accusation was that some people down tools, they didn't follow tactical instructions, and we sat back when we should have been going forward. I don't know who that was levelled against. Still not sure. I really don't like the midfield at all. So it's tough, and I probably would have selected Alvarez for this one to sit. A lot of West Ham midfield look like they've been sitting recently, but I mean to sit and move around a bit in front of the back four. It would be foolish of me to select him, but I probably would have done so. Without him in mind, I would actually pick Souček to almost be like Souček was when Declan was here in his final season. The defensive Souček, auxiliary centre back, I used to call him. I'd put him there. I don't mind the three at the back. But we don't play the three at the back as it should be played, which is basically, going back to Lothar Matthäus or Beckenbauer. So the Germans, the sweeper system was originally a German system, but one of your three centre backs goes and makes the extra man in midfield. That means wanders up there a little bit. I mean, actually in possession, you stand in midfield and you dictate play. So those three German players I've just mentioned, but Glenn Hoddle finished his career doing that. Ruud Gullit, these players would dictate play. They would be they'd basically move into central midfield and be like a Pirlo or that's basically what you do. And that in turn will allow one of your midfielders then to move up and create another man attack. That's the whole benefit of the system. We don't do any and even close to any of that stuff. So I think with that in mind, you probably want a midfielder who's going to be able to go back and do it the other way. So I'd probably put Souček there. At least he can be effective in both boxes. And then I would still pick Soler and Paqueta, who I think were I've got no problem with Paqueta at all. I think he's in tip-top form at the moment, and Soler is probably the least worst of the rest.
Yeah, if someone's what I'm waiting to say now, someone might think you've lost the plot. You're right. I've lost the plot, and I'm aware I've lost the plot, but I've had enough. Fulkrug coming out and pointing the finger was the last straw for me. It was almost like the bullet that I needed. It was what I required. It was almost like you can have your theories and you can believe that certain players aren't doing what they're supposed to do and stuff like that, but you've never really got proof. But actually, Fulkrug just said that, and as far as I'm concerned, that is proof, and it's confirmation bias possibly, but that is my opinion, and I want to see a reaction from Potter, which is if Fulkrug is calling players out saying you're not doing what you're supposed to do, Potter will know who he is referring to. Right, this won't be a surprise. Potter's not going to go, oh my God, you think certain players aren't doing what they're instructed? Potter will be like, yes, you're right. They aren't doing it. I want none of those players involved. So while we're talking about this 11, if he's referring to Todibo, then get him out of the team as well. Whoever you're referring to, get them out of the team. Even if it's Areola, because he keeps booting it along, get him out of the team. I don't care. Whoever Fulkrug's referring to and Potter knows he's referring to, I don't want to see them start. And if he, before the game, says, look, My 11's a bit of a mismatch, but I've dropped all the ones that just ignored my instructions last week. I'd like to think the majority of fans turn around and say, good on you. That's what we want. We got a reaction from Fulkrug, and I liked it. Now it's time to see a reaction from Graham Potter. But without the knowledge of who he's referring to, and I quite like Solar in centre midfield. In centre midfield for me is Lewis Orford and Andy Irving. I've had enough. I've lost the plot. I want two players in there that are going to roll their sleeves up, get stuck in, and actually play for the badge and their teammates and the fans, because too many weeks now, it feels like half of them can't be arsed, and I'm sick of it. So, Irving, Orford, big opportunity for both. And I'll tell you what, they might not be good enough. They might not be ready for the Premier League, but I won't be grumbling about lack of effort from either of them at full time. And that's enough for me as far as I'm concerned at this point. Moving into Paqueta as well, by the way. Everything Gonza said is correct. Fantastic form at the minute. And I'm looking forward to watching him play. Yep. Although I'm not looking forward to watching West Ham on Saturday. I'm looking forward to seeing Lucas Paqueta. That leaves three. The guy on the right, the guy on the left, and the guy up front. Unless you're doing something different with your team. Bowen on the right?
Yeah, Bowen on the right. Fulkrug in the middle. I'm going to start Guilherme in this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm dropping conditional.
Yeah. Look, there needs to be a change, and like I don't think you're bonkers for picking out a very, very very, very close to picking Orford myself. I think the worst, and this is not good at all, particularly on the West Ham channel. I'd actually forgotten about Andy Irving, as the Dr. Dre rap goes. I'd forgotten all about him, and I'm sorry, Andy. But you've got a mug behind you, reminding me of him.
Half the mug's there.
Half the mug, yeah. That's what I feel like. Look,
unlike some of the players that played last week, they're a total mug.
They are. We need. Potter's gonna need a massive reaction here.
Yeah,
and if in many respects his return to Brighton becomes the least of his issues, it would ordinarily, if everything was going normal. And that would be the story. That's the narrative, right? Potter going back to Brighton. Nicholas Fulkrug has made it a narrative. Now, he has got a decision to make. I just don't know who's right and who's wrong. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of rumours, and none of us are in the dressing room, so actually we don't know. We've been told, or we've heard third, fourth, fifth-hand information. He either has to drop Nicholas Fulkrug. I don't want him to, by the way. That's why I like what Fulkrug's saying. Basically, Fulkrug's either telling the truth or he's being self-serving, right? If he's being self-serving and it's a load of nonsense, he's going to need to drop Nicholas Fulkrug, right? If Fulkrug's telling the truth, he's going to need to, as you say, identify the culprits. Because he cannot do an in-between. There's no in-between where he keeps everybody happy anymore. If Fulkrug is telling the truth, Graham Potter is giving instructions that are not being followed. You can't have that in any job at all. I don't care if you're the shop manager and your staff are not doing as they're told. The longer it gets told, basically you ask them to do something and they just sit there. Don't worry about it. I'll do what I want. Thank you very much. You can't have that. That's going to allow something to fester. Plus, they're not allowed to smoke inside the shop anyway these days. I think the other thing that is an issue for him is, I do think there's a massive contradiction in. And so basically, this is why we're all so confused. But if let's go with the most accepted narrative on this, that Fulkrug pointed out that players weren't going forward. They were backing off. The coach had given instruction to get forward, and Potter was witnessed on the touchline. Get forward, get forward, get forward. What you're doing. So that's the established narrative. If that's the truth, we still have a manager who in his words or in his actions is waving them forward, but actually in his tactics is saying, get back, please get back, because he swapped Nicholas Fulkrug for a midfielder in Thomas Souček. A midfielder, I hasten to add, I'm just putting in to be an auxiliary centre-back. Whether or not you thought James Ward-Prowse was good, bad or indifferent, he still took a midfielder in James Ward-Prowse and he swapped him for a centre-back in Konstantinos Mavropanos. And then West Ham's best player, the only player that has scored a goal for West Ham's top goal scorer, Jarrod Bowen, he took him off the pitch. Just those three actions alone say, get back, Get back, get back. So he is, at the very least, even if you believe the narrative, Graham Potter is guilty of mixed messaging. He's going to need to sort himself out. And West Ham are now desperate. I can't think of any more recent time when West Ham have been in more need of a strong leader.
Yeah.
We really need it now, and he's going to have to step up and be that. He might not have asked to be manager. He might have just asked to be head coach. But because we don't have a director of football, because there's very, very little guidance coming from the top of the club, Graham Potter is West Ham's manager. He is the figurehead, and at the moment, he's the most important man at the football club because it's going to be there's no one else. And I do remember watching an interview with Graham Potter where he turned around and he said that he was, I think it was with Jake Humphries, quite possibly, on a podcast, and he said that he felt very much left alone. When he was at Chelsea, there's no one else there, and he was surprised to find himself almost top of the tree. And his words were, "Everyone else was over in America. I had to phone America for any support." He may well find that that's the case now, albeit they're not over in America. My point is, he is top of the tree. He is going to have to lead now. He's not at Brighton anymore, where you've got Paul Winstanley, you've got Ashworth, you've got Barber, you've got Tony Bloom ahead of you, and you can sort of hide in the periphery. No, you are the figurehead. You are the head of this club now, and you're going to need to take charge of this situation, and you're going to need to do it decisively. And that may not manifest itself in a win, but he is going to have to not only be seen to take charge, that is important, but also take charge.
I'd argue that you're speaking about those above him or equal to him. I'd argue those below him in the pecking order in regards to the playing staff. He doesn't have the leadership there either. At Brighton, you have Pascal Gross and Lewis Dunk. He ain't got that at West Ham. So even like leadership and character in the dressing room, he doesn't have that either. So he's almost got like the back to worry about.
Yeah.
I would argue there's been a sign of leadership with Füllkrug, but we don't know how Graham Potter's going to respond to that yet, whether he likes it or not. We don't know. Is Füllkrug seen as a leader at West Ham and therefore he's just doing his role? Or is he seen as somebody that's maybe getting
a troublemaker?
Yeah, it's someone a bit ahead of his station. Maybe on Saturday, Graham Potter was gaslighting us a little bit. Maybe he's waving everyone forward, but he was actually shouting, "Don't you dare go in this direction!" And I want to see none of you going forward at all. So the fans are like, "Look, he's waving them forward." But, do you care about this game? Because I do, but not necessarily about the result. It's more, I want to see the reaction from Potter. I want to see a reaction from the players. I almost need to see something that says, "Don't worry, we're not away to fall to pieces," because it feels like it's been quite a rocky start for him, and his boat's hit something in the sea, and we're away to discover this week whether it's made a hole in it or not.
Well, and whether he can swim. Do I care about the game? Yeah, I guess I do. It is frightening how many people I've spoken to, West Ham fans, who are quite apathetic about West Ham at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. I've not even asked a question about season ticket renewals because I'm a little bit. The truth is, it seems a bit awkward, and I'm a little bit frightened to hear what it is because I know I don't need to because I know it's going to be really low. It's an important game. I think it may be one of two of the last winnable games for West Ham, and I believe. Listen, I watched Tottenham played Nottingham Forest the other night. I was bored, and Nottingham Forest won, and Nottingham Forest had the clinical stuff. But I saw enough in Tottenham to think they will absolutely swarm us and swamp us. I've not really seen anything really of Manchester United. I know obviously they got the humdinger in Europe.
So do Spurs though.
Got through in the quarterfinal. No, I mean I've seen Spurs. My point is I've seen Spurs, and I think they'll beat us. I haven't seen Man United to say whether they'll beat us or not, so I don't know. But so there's a little bit of guesswork there. I think Forest probably will. I'm looking at it. I'm not convinced that Ipswich would beat us, but it's looking tough. I think this and Ipswich are really Potter's probably last chances to get wins. I've not seen anything else suggest he can beat any of the other teams. If he doesn't, then we go through to the remainder of the season, as I suspect we might, he has serious problems. We talk about the ship, the sinking ship, the listing ship, whatever it is. This is really a big opportunity for him, and in many respects, his game has become far more than football. This is intent, and this is actually, I think, in many respects, a barometer of confidence in Potter. And no, sorry, competence, not confidence, competence. Can you sort this out? Because even people who are very pro Potter and are convinced that next season will be his season. He'll do fine next season. They're getting less and less as it goes on. West Ham are a mess, and this is really, really important, because what's going on now is totally hindering our ability to bring players in ahead of next season. Players are looking at West Ham now and thinking, I don't want to join this. I don't like the direction of travel with the club. I don't like the football they're playing. And almost anyone else. It is scary how far ahead teams like Brighton, you mentioned the 3Bs, Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford, did you mention earlier? I think, inconsistent teams. It's frightening how much ahead of West Ham these teams are now. It's a big game.
Before I ask you for your final words and your score prediction, just want to point people in direction of our Patreon. Quick question: would you give us 90 per week to keep Hammers Chat running and keep the lights on at Hammers Chat? If the answer is yes, please consider joining Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Links in the description and pinned comments as well. In return for your kind donation, you will get additional video content. We'll be doing a player ratings from this game on Monday morning. On top of that, we've got giveaways over there. We've got the prediction competition, which I still think is really underrated. There's always signed goods up for grabs. All you have to do is guess the score, first goal scorer of the game, you're in the running. And if you're the only one that's predicted it correctly, or you're the overall winner, you will win a signed item depending on which tier you subscribe to. We've given away loads of signed items, over £1,500 worth of stuff we've given away on a prediction competition. You can join up from 90 per week, £3.60 per month, and that's the final price. There's no 360. You get on there and you go, hang on a minute. You've added the VAT.
They've deducted £1,000 from my bank account.
Yeah, it's £3 plus VAT. So maybe we should promote it as £3 with a wink, but we prefer to be transparent. 360. Links in description below. Gonzo, any final words and your score prediction, please?
No, I think I've said it all, mate. I think I've said it all. People get the gist, I'm sure. By the way, I do think this is a winnable game. If he gets it right, I don't think they're in great shakes. I don't think they're in a good run of form. And what I didn't say is there is pressure on Herzler. I've started probably last week, started to hear questions being asked about him and stuff like that. Not from Brighton fans, but certainly from outsiders. Is he the Messiah? And he has certainly gone from the most promising coach in Europe, which is what was being said. I'm not sure he ever was. That's being said. To now, people saying, "Oh, he's not as good as De Zerbi, is he? Is he the guy? Is he going to be able to take Brighton forward?" I don't think Brighton will ditch him. They're not that type of club. But now, right now, is the best time to play Brighton and Hove Albion. That's a really big deal for Graham Potter. I think this is when they're at their weakest. Their best striker is out as well. A little bit of pressure under the manager. If you don't beat Brighton this weekend, there's no circumstances this season, because he does have most of his players. Potter, by the way, he's got most of his players. Then there is no set of circumstances in which he would, barring food poisoning or something like that, or an assassin. I just got no evidence to see that West Ham can beat Brighton, particularly not at their stadium with their lovely pies. I think they're going to win 2-0.
Ooh, I went for 1-0. I thought you might have.
No.
Oh no, I've got it wrong. Potter. There's also the Potter factor. Him returning to Brighton. This is a game where he might be getting booed by all four stands during the match. He needs a reaction. We need a reaction from him, which is the starting 11. And then he needs a reaction from the players, which is the performance. He can't afford to lose this game. If he thinks it's bad when teams boo him, or the fans boo his team at half-time and full-time, when he went there with Chelsea, that place was on him for 90 minutes. And then Brighton were as fans, they were just constantly going at him, singing at him during the game. And it was a difficult place for him to go as a manager of Chelsea. And it might be a little bit lesser because he's no longer at the club which he ditched Brighton for. But I don't think they're going to be giving him a warm reception.
They'll be giving him a pie.
No, there'd be no pie.
Custard pie.
But Brighton fans haven't forgiven him. I did a video with Matthew, did 2 videos with Matthew, one discussing Potter Brighton and one looking ahead to the game. And very quick, straight away, he said, I don't like him. And it's because of what he done to Brighton. Difficult environment for him with the Brighton fans, but it's a difficult environment for him with the West Ham fans as well. He's got to get this right on Saturday, and that's why I care. Listen, if we win, lose, or draw against Brighton, it makes no difference. It would be nice to finish above Spurs. I say nice, it'd be funny. It'd be funny if we can finish above Spurs and Man United, right? We could somehow get 15th and the other 2 teams below. It would be funny. We'll go, ha. It's not an achievement. It's just weird crap, and you're even worse. But I think the Tottenham and the Man U games are both winnable fixtures for Potter. I think he's got 4. Not Forest, but the other 4. I think, you could win these games here. Because when we play Spurs and Man U, they've got the Europa League semi-finals to contend with. That's going to take priority.
Sure.
I am a bit nervous for this game in regards to Potter. I think every week he's losing support. And I think what Fulkrug's done is given him an opportunity to change things, but also he's put Potter under a little bit of pressure, which is if you change nothing, I think you'll lose even more support from some people. I think this is a big game for a lot of people making their minds up about Potter. With all that said and done, that's my score prediction. 1-1. I think it's one of those games where no one wins. Potter will come away relieved he's not got beaten by Brighton, but ultimately it doesn't really change much, and it dents Brighton's chances of getting European football. Anyway, we're off skis. If you've somehow enjoyed this preview, you've enjoyed the chat around pies and Potter and whatever else, please do drop a like on it by clicking the thumbs up, subscribing to Hammers Chat, myself and Gonzo. Well, if you join Pitch, and we'll see you in the Player Rating Show Monday morning.